What?
I invited
What?
Max Case.
What are you doing?
And Ray
Who's
from
over here?
Petrol. Welcome.
How's everybody doing? Are you orange pilled? All right, we got a special session. Ray, Youssef, come on. Come on.
Door. Oh my goodness, this is loud. Do we even need this? I love you guys. Thank you for this honor.
All righty, Ray, it's great to see you, great to be with you. We've been following you for a number of years, and it's an incredibly exciting story because people say, well, will anybody ever adopt Bitcoin? Is it ever going to become currency? And there in Nigeria, thanks to Paxful, we're heading toward hyper-Bitcoinization. Last I checked, something like 30% of the population. You can get my numbers up to date, but they're already using Bitcoin. Is that true? Is it on in Nigeria?
It is lit up there in Nigeria. Absolutely on fire every single day in every corner of the country. So it's not 30% of the population that's using Bitcoin. It's actually around 1%. It just seems to be that.
What the fuck? I got that completely wrong.
No, not just you. Everyone's been throwing around that number, but if you talk to people on the street, it's not that many people using it. However, it is the intensity and fervor of how that 1% is using Bitcoin that has driven Nigeria to be the top adopter of Bitcoin across the world. Absolutely remarkable, and it's by the fury and youth of the youth of that country. Even with their own government trying to throw them in jail and shake them down for Bitcoin, they succeeded in doing the impossible. They created their own alternative financial system using Bitcoin. They moved over $2 billion of remittances away from fiat and Western Union to Bitcoin in less than 1 year. That is the power of a driven and dedicated youthful community to propel this movement forward. And if 1% of Nigeria can do that, imagine what 30% can do. Brother, we haven't even begun.
Right, that's an amazing figure, 2 billion. So here in El Salvador, the projection is that 400 million saved in remittances by using Bitcoin and getting away from the Western Unions of the world. And this brings up a really interesting point, Ray, because we have a lot of money transmitters around the world and institutions that are part of a global monetary system that's a captured system. One of the biggest players in that system would be the SWIFT network, which is used for big money transfers around the world. And SWIFT has been in the news in the last few years because America has decided to politicize SWIFT and to even weaponize SWIFT when it comes to sanctions and things like that, when we're talking Iran and other countries. My understanding is that part of your vision is essentially to replace SWIFT and everything like SWIFT. Is that a fair statement?
Brother, talking to you might get me into some trouble. You like to pick the big fights with the big boys now, don't you? And that's why we're here, right? Why bother shying away from the truth? So yes, SWIFT is broken, guys. Completely broken. It might work in the West, but when you consider places like Africa are using a broken and even more outdated version of SWIFT just to do settlements with the country next door, you'll understand what financial apartheid actually is. It is an entire nation state being kept under financial bondage. Certain religions forbid any kind of financial sanctions. They call it economic terrorism, and that's exactly what it is. That is a reason why some places are rich and some places are poor, and will always be poor. But Max and I have a different message, and everyone in this room believes in the same thing. We do not have to live in a world where some have to be poor for others to be rich. This is it, guys. If you believe this, we've already won. So this pro-human message is diametrically opposed to the anti-human message that is coming from this cartel of economic terrorism that is SWIFT and, quite frankly, incompetence. It's time we fix this thing, and we can. Would anyone here use a messenger if it only worked 9 to 5, Mondays to Fridays?
No.
And when someone said no, and was broken, you couldn't even message people outside of your country, then why should we settle for the same thing with our financial system? The youth of Western Africa have figured this out. And I'm talking to the youth here, and I have to say, you got a hell of a lot of busineros up in this country. People that understand business, that appreciate the beauty of business and the good manners in business leading to wealth. So that's how financial revolution spread. It's communities helping communities. And eventually, everyone wants to work with these guys that are doing great business and making things happen. And that's why Swift is just going to be another option in what we choose to use. But Bitcoin and peer-to-peer will be above that. And that's happening every single day. You look at the OCT traffic in Nigeria, for example, Paxful does less than 1% of it. 99% of it is in person, on WhatsApp, on Telegram. There is so much happening that we are not aware of. And once we get that on paper, the numbers are going to be staggering. But what I'm trying to say is that we kind of already done it. We're just waiting to see how it plays out, but it should be fun.
Right. So I see, whenever I'm on Twitter, I see that you're in El Zonte surfing. What's up here? Are you moving here, or no? My real question is this: the spirit that you see in Nigeria in the youth, you see it here in El Salvador and El Zonte. Okay, and so that entrepreneurial spirit is kind of universal wherever you go. You find 20-somethings and who are adopting Bitcoin as a way to aggregate unconfiscatable wealth, and it's a message of hope. You know, and we're living in a time around the world where it seems that hope is in short supply. Is Bitcoin giving this next generation some hope?
Absolutely, brother. If I had to put Bitcoin in one word, it is hope. Imagine this world without Bitcoin. You know, for me as a libertarian, it used to be Ron Paul, right? And I was like, wow, finally someone out there that seems sane. But in a world where the money supply, the money system is completely and utterly insane and anti-human, Bitcoin is that shining beacon of hope, and every day that light gets brighter. And it's so beautiful to have people that actually believe in what we're doing. And there are more and more of us every day, and everyone's getting smarter and smarter, and we're getting busier and busier. That's the thing. Bitcoin is unlocking the tremendous talent around the world. You don't know what to do with yourself? You're too smart to have a boss? Well, welcome to Bitcoin. If you want to have impact, this is the place to do it. Build an app, help out a team, help change the narrative away from speculation to a real means of exchange, a tool that can help the little guy. The rich kids have enough speculative assets to play with. Bitcoin was created for the little guy. And if you build for the little guy, believe me, you will be rewarded with generative growing wealth. That's the power of peer-to-peer electronic cash, right? First words in the white paper, it doesn't matter what happens with the price of Bitcoin. As long as real people are using it every single day and it's bringing hope and profit, wealth to their lives, that is beautiful. And that is what's going to carry this revolution. And that's going to change the definition of hope, guys. Because everywhere I look, even America, seems like America is becoming a poor country now, right? I heard a truck driver interviewed when he won the lottery, and they asked him, what are you going to do now every day that you won the lottery? This American dude said, I'm going to buy meat every day, and I'm going to eat meat every day. Can you imagine an American saying that? So, I don't think we need the West to affect this revolution. I believe it can all happen in the global South, but honestly, we're all one big interconnected family right now. We're all facing the same pressure. So we all have to stand up and embrace Bitcoin and defend Bitcoin. My love for all the toxic maximalists out there, you guys are all right. We need the ground troops out there holding the line.
Yeah, a term that you have brought up, which is something that I think is an interesting term because it does apply in so many instances, and that would be financial apartheid. And I've talked a little bit about interest rate apartheid. We're using interest rates to create ghettos of people that are forced to borrow money at 18% or higher with payday loans versus the friends of Goldman Sachs, and their cost of money might be zero or even less than zero. In some instances, the cost of borrowing at JP Morgan, for example, is they get paid to borrow. It's less than zero. But you've used this term financial apartheid. Can you expand on that and how you see that?
Well, what you're talking about, interest rate apartheid, is definitely a part of that. Like, the poor have no access to credit. You look at places like Mexico or Venezuela, there's absolutely no access to credit. If you want to buy a sewing machine in Rwanda for $200 US to start your business, you're going to pay 30% a month to access that credit. And you're happy to even get that deal because there's no other alternatives. Imagine if we could bring in all that wealth trapped in the West, where someone in England can take out $20,000 at 0% interest and they'd be happy with 3%. Imagine if we could move that wealth over to the global South, have a free market for this credit. Imagine all the wealth that would be created, all the wealth that would find itself in the global South and then back.
So to be clear, the reason it exists is because the money center banks, as they're called, are centralized money center banks that control the flow of money. They control SWIFT. They control what's happening at the banks. They control the money printing. And they're able to create and selectively decide who gets to have money at what time and at what interest rate through a highly centralized, corrupt model. Bitcoin is decentralized. So therefore, by definition, it defunds or debanks the financial terrorists, as I call them.
Very well put. That's exactly the situation when it comes to credit. But there's more financial apartheid happening even outside the credit. In fact, it's gotten so bad that basic transmission is nearly impossible in some cases. For example, in Africa, there are 2,000 payment networks. Only 3% of them talk to each other. If you have an M-Pesa account in Kenya, where it all started, it's the biggest online wallet in Kenya, you cannot send money to an M-Pesa user in Ghana. They are two separate networks. Can you imagine that? If you have a bank account in Nigeria and you get a bank card, Visa or MasterCard, you can only spend $100 a month with that piece of plastic. That's it. If you have a business in Nigeria importing things and selling them to the local population, which most of the merchants do, since very little is made in Africa, how do you make payments to get those goods from abroad, whether it's goods in China or cars in America? If your central bank won't let you send money wires out, and that's exactly the situation that happened in Nigeria just 2 short years ago, and everyone turned to Bitcoin. It was the only way they could bring money into the country, and it was the only way they could pay for things to keep their business going. There are so many examples of financial apartheid you would not believe here.
Right, so what you're describing there can't even move money, across 100 yards away because they're on totally different networks. We know why this is the way it is, because of the history and the existence of colonialization. Africa is the victim of harsh colonial interests, has been for a couple hundred years. Can Bitcoin decolonize Africa?
Absolutely, it's already started. It started in places like Nigeria, it spread to Ghana, now Cameroon is getting the bug. It's up to us to push Senegal forward. Kenya is one of the fastest growing markets for Bitcoin. We did a campus tour in 2019 at 8 different colleges in South Africa and Kenya, and everyone is so receptive. I want to put a special note out there about what I've learned about the African people. When I first went there, 5, 6 years ago, when I started talking about Bitcoin, and even up until that campus tour, people get really scared when you mention cryptocurrencies there, but so many Africans have been scammed in all of these MLM scams involving cryptocurrency. And that makes our work a lot harder as a community, because then they think, this guy is just trying to scam me too. Put my money into this? No. And I don't blame them for being skeptical, but it's when you switch the narrative to a means of exchange, that's when the Africans get really excited, because they have so many problems with money, and now if they can solve those problems for themselves and other people using Bitcoin, that's when the light of entrepreneurial fire comes up in their eyes.
Right, you mentioned toxic Bitcoin maximalism a moment ago, and to put it in context of what you're saying there's a need for this moat around Bitcoin to be built, filled with alligators and sharks and poison, because the level of scams is so incredible. I would posit that everything that's not Bitcoin is centralized, either absolutely or to some degree. Will go to zero against Bitcoin, offers nothing that Bitcoin can't now or will soon offer, and is an utter scam. Your thoughts?
Pretty much.
Okay.
It's exactly what it is.
So the need for maximalism and toxic maximalism is to say, the same way you would want to have the ability to keep any kind of predator away from one part of the society. We don't want psychopaths to filter in and poison the community. But let me ask you like the $64,000 question or the 64,000 Bitcoin question. And I noticed President Bukele made a major announcement today about a drug bust. He said, we captured 1,000 Bitcoins worth of cocaine. I don't know if people saw that in the news, but he's totally hyper-Bitcoinized. He's seeing everything, he's pricing everything in Bitcoin. He sees nothing but Bitcoin, which is remarkable. So that's going to have an amazing impact on things going forward. But here's the question. When I talk to some folks, high-profile people in the Bitcoin community, they talk about Bitcoin as being the world reserve asset and the US dollar as being the world reserve currency. And when asked why the US dollar would be the world reserve currency, the response is, well, it represents certain, quote, Western values. Now, I've lived in countries all over the world, and I would say that a lot of people are trying to escape those so-called Western values. If you talk to people in Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Iran, I can name 20 countries right now where the so-called Western values are not something they're aspiring to. Is the US dollar at risk of extinction, an extinction event, and is that a bad thing? Ray.
Okay, so let's be honest here. The only thing that's keeping the US dollar afloat is the US Navy and the threat of violence. That's at the corner, like the foundation of everything. That's the absolute truth. That's the only reason we've been talking about the dollar right now.
But even the Paul Krugman at the New York Times has said the New York dollar is backed by violence, men with guns.
Exactly.
Right? So without violence, the dollar wouldn't exist. So why do we care if it goes extinct? Wouldn't that get rid of a lot of violence?
It certainly would, brother. They wouldn't be able to create trillions of dollars and start wars, which is their favorite, bedtime activity, right? Bitcoin is a promise for a peaceful world. I called my company Paxful because it means peaceful in Latin. And if you have an honest system of money, that's all that is needed for humanity to prosper. This is the greatest lesson that Bitcoin taught me, besides that money is work, is that the natural state of humans is prosperity and abundance. And the US dollar is honestly getting in the way of that. And it's been in the way of that for the past 70 years. We've attacked how many nations? 70 nations, all powered by this petrodollar, all powered on a pack of lies.
Right, hundreds of military bases. We pay half of our taxes to the Pentagon, and they leave tens of billions of dollars worth of equipment in Kabul. I did the mathematics. I'm owed a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, just based on the taxes that I paid. But I want to ask you this, kind of, the other side of the coin are, okay, those people living in the U.S. Are not having those experiences as we've talked about, but they also are suffering in a different way. And you said something before we came on, which I thought was brilliant. You said, yes, they're overbanked, which I think that's a problem that I have here in America and elsewhere. Describe that.
How many people here have had your credit card shut down by your bank because of suspicious transactions? Raise your hands. Okay. How many times has it actually helped you? As in it actually caught the bad guys? Raise your hands. I don't see one hand. I almost got killed several times because my card was shut down. That is the definition of being incompetent, and unfortunately, we're overbanked. They are overbearing. You'll talk to merchants all the time, and they're like, man, what can this Bitcoin thing do to me? I'm like, oh, what problems do you have? It's like, I don't have any problems sending money, but every time I get a wire for $50,000, the bank has to make me fill out 20 forms. I'm just selling some caviar. This is perfectly legal. What's going on?
Right, and they wanted to start doing examinations, transactions down to $600. This is something they're circulating, from 10,000 to 600. So that's overbanked. So this is people all over the world. You could be living in Africa. You could be living in, Greenwich, Connecticut. We have the same problem. A pernicious, out of control, rogue banking cartel that's trying to steal everybody's money. That's the same
Absolutely.
problem everywhere, right? So, and Bitcoin fixes this, and it literally does fix this. And there's an urgency to it, which, getting back to the shitcoin market, it's annoying because they're getting in the way of the speed at which we could get rid of these fucking bankers.
They certainly do make it difficult, don't they? They enjoy it, right? Every time I talk to American regulators about Bitcoin and Africa, you should see what happens with their eyes. It's kind of creepy.
Hillary Clinton was just quoted today, I believe, or yesterday, saying finally somebody opened up the crypt and the corpse of Hillary popped up, and she got through the silver bullet and the garlic strand, and she mummified her way to a microphone somewhere, bleeding out of every orifice. And she said, Bitcoin could undermine the dollar, right? So this assassin who's probably killed more Americans, than Alec Baldwin is, out there trying to say that the U.S. dollar it needs protection against Bitcoin. When you saw that, and I'm sure you did because it hit the news, what were your thoughts, Ray?
I think they're right to be concerned because they know where all this is going.
Right.
And their foremost tactic is to annoy us to death, put us in prison if they can. But if that doesn't work, they're going to try to corrupt this movement, spiritually speaking. And they can do that by creating a tremendous amount of noise. And that's another name for shitcoins and shitcoin projects. Noise that is distracting us from the goal. People ask me, why has Paxful supported Bitcoin for all this time? You could have made so much money if you added all of these coins here. I say, hell no. We have an ethical responsibility to protect our 7 million users and the peoples of the world from these scams. It's in our best interest to make sure that the entirety of our movement, as much as possible, all that momentum, all that energy, all that love is behind one central clearing layer, and it must be Bitcoin. That is best for everyone. It truly is.
Yeah. All right. Right, so one central clearing layer. So it's the monetary network, incorruptible, unconfiscatable, uncensorable, and it
permissionless.
Permissionless. You don't need permission. It's not for nothing. The biggest group in America that's using Bitcoin is Black America. And I've been saying to the Black Lives Matter movement folks, I'm saying fix the money, and you're going to fix racism in America.
Absolutely. I'd like to take this to give a shout out to one of the greatest men of the 20th century, Malcolm X. Malcolm X. They love to catch him making divisive comments like he was in his early years. But the real magic of Malcolm X is when he spoke about communities. And he would tell people, instead of looking at that actor or musician or athlete and trying to be like them, stop, look at your corner store. Who owns that corner store? Is it one of your people? If it's not, you build a corner store right next to it. And you do business with your people. Have them all come and support you. Build up your communities financially. And then you can buy representation, and you can take control of the system and protect your communities. That is the way forward. Bitcoin allows us to do that. Community to community. El Zante is the perfect example. With peer-to-peer marketplaces, each of those communities can talk to other communities no matter where they are, and they can all exchange value, and no one can stop them. This blockage of value transfer has been what has kept the world poor. When everyone understands this, and we all pile in behind Bitcoin and educate, we're going to see wealth and prosperity on a level we've never experienced. It's going to be for everyone. I truly do believe that. Call me crazy. I don't care.
Right, and of course, in the case of Malcolm X, it wasn't until after he made the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and he came back with a kind of a universal message of love and peace, was when he was assassinated.
Absolutely. When he started preaching unity between everyone, any religion, any race.
That's when he became really dangerous.
Exactly. He became a spiritual, like the main threat on the planet.
Right, and with Bitcoin, you can't assassinate Bitcoin.
Exactly. That's a perfect example.
You can't kill Bitcoin.
You can cut the head off any one movement, but you cannot stop an army of
plenty of room for love. Plenty of room for love, and you won't get punished for love. Because in our society, that with a currency backed by violence and fiat money, those who push love are punished. But if you push Bitcoin love, you are exonerated. You are free. Am I right, Ray?
Absolutely, brother. It's all about love. El Zante started with people just sharing what they loved with other people. They didn't have a mission to convert or proselytize anyone.
Right.
They were just sharing with their community something that made them successful, that changed their life. And when that spreads, that's beautiful. You can't stop that.
Love, it's all about love, baby. Let's hug right here. Let's have a big hug. Everybody hug. Hug your neighbor. All right, buddy, we're going to do it. Thank you so much, Ray.
Thank you, brother.
Let's go. All right. And that's an out.